that? Perfect. You want to be that guy? Good morning, everyone. Welcome to October 5th, Wednesday. We have the crew all together. How are you guys doing?
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Doing fantastic. How about you?
Outstanding. I love the energy and all of us coming together. Today is going to be an amazing show. There's so much to talk about. Let's start with the futures. Slightly down for the day. It's slightly red. 36 points for S&P. Dow about 288 points, which is 0.95%. The only green ones at this very moment are Bitcoin, slightly 0.58, a continuation of last month's price action. So go ahead. Good. It's awkward moment.
I like it. I like it.
Good. And I apologize for being late. I'm still on Latin American Standard Time. My apologies. We're about 1 minute behind. But things are going to get juicy today. And we also have a special guest for a specific topic that we're going to dive deep into. So in terms of the Bitcoin, you know what? I know we have quite a few projects going on live. So you know what? Let's stop wasting time. Let's focus on what's going on. And let's go straight into it. Because I know we've been talking a lot about it. First, let's bring in the topic right here. Where Charles Hoskinson, the founder of ADA, or Cardano, as it's known back in the day. He speaks of Bitcoin as digital gold. Let's talk about the mine. And we will dive deep into it. And you're going to see a lot of reaction from quite a few levels. We've had it internal in Discord. By the way, we set the link into it so you can join the conversation. And we will also have our special guest come in. But first, you know what? Let's bring our special guest in because we interrupted him on the way out. So here is Dr. J. Welcome aboard, sir.
How literally was going fishing.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. You know, I was headed to Boone, North Carolina to do some fly fishing. I've got a tree there just to demonstrate that. And I've got my waiter. If you're ever in Boone, you should go to Due South Outfitters. They're some of my favorite people. And one of the best channels to follow besides DCTV is Wildfly Productions. Really great fly fishing stuff. But fly fishing and crypto, they go hand in hand because they both require a lot of thinking and processing and picking the right fly versus picking the right asset. And you got to do your own research. Nobody else can catch a fish for you. Nobody else can make you money and make you a livelihood in crypto. So do your own research.
That? Only on DCTV can we link cryptocurrency and fishing. I love it.
And they are an absolute wonderful group up there in Boone. You are 100% correct.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's do it.
And I love it because you are all about research too. So Dr. J, this is great timing on the subject. And Tamp, awesome reaching out to him. I appreciate the flexibility. We will make it short, efficient, and quite powerful for everyone. And let's get this started off. For example, look at Lord Fenrir is saying, shots fired. Cardano's terrible, especially as far as corruption is concerned. There is a reason drug cartels are pushing to use it in countries they control, quote unquote. How real is this? Is this fact or FUD? So this is what we're discussing at this very moment, is this conversation. Tamp, I know you dove into it.
Right.
And then we will also share what one of our Discord members, brought his comments to it. Go ahead.
So this got posed in Discord. This is where it originally comes from. A user by the name of Bara asked if we had seen the video that was on the screen right there. And basically it's about a 15-minute long video from Charles Hoskins, who is Hodgkinson. He is the founder of Cardano. A little bit of background from him. He was an ETH developer. There was a lot of controversy around why he left. They said his attitude was terrible. He wasn't a good developer. And ultimately, he got kicked off of the very early development team for the Ethereum ecosystem. So Charles left. He went and he formed Cardano. And Jay's going to go into a little bit about the crutch of all that, because if you look up Cardano or ADA as it trades, there is so much information out there that is seemingly very verifiable from academia. A lot of people are involved in the Cardano blockchain, despite a lot of things coming out about Cardano that don't really make a lot of sense. So that being a little background on that, what this particular 15-minute video, says is Charles came out and basically said this. The one thing I did agree with him about is that he said that Bitcoin is digital gold. On that, we do agree. So he finally came out, he said it, and that's the headlines that you're going to see all over Twitter. But what he also said was that if you closed all of the physical gold mines in the world, that it does not necessarily devalue the gold that has been extracted from those mines. So what he said is that we should stop Bitcoin mining altogether and only work with the Bitcoin that has been extracted from the network, which right now is about 19 million Bitcoin out of the maximum 21 million Bitcoin. He said that the 19 million Bitcoin will hold their value, and that we can wrap this Bitcoin for use on other networks outside of the Bitcoin network. Now, he brought up a table from CoinGecko that said that wrap Bitcoin, which actually is a thing, and it has value trading right now that is almost identical to regular Bitcoin. He brought that up as a point where if you have wrapped Bitcoin that trades at the same value as regular Bitcoin, then it can be used across other networks. You then shut down the Bitcoin miners. You save all this money on electricity and environmental, havoc on electricity. And we can just basically go from there and use the 19 million Bitcoin. That was his proposal.
So I got a question for that. What ledger are we going to, track all these transactions on if we don't have miners securing the network and ensuring that the ledger is correct? What the fuck happens with all that?
Yeah.
Does he not understand how mining works? Is he a fucking idiot? I don't know.
And
I mean,
he missed
go
the
ahead.
whole boat. The whole reason mining exists are two things: secure the network and process transactions. And we all know that Bitcoin is a protocol for transfer of value, peer-to-peer money transfers. If there is no server or processor, what use is the network then at that point? So he's missing the whole boat by even saying, hey, let's stop mining. No, bro. The whole thing exists to secure the network and process these transactions. And here's what our member brought up. So we have two problems here we're addressing. One, his statement on stopping mining. And this is what Barra, I'll get your pronunciation properly. But he says, when you wrap Bitcoin, it is on a different network. It means it is not Bitcoin anymore, is the way he's explaining it. It is this other thing that running on a different chain. They have tried this in the past by creating various Bitcoin forks. They all became worthless at the end. Wrapped Bitcoin is like gold certificates, in my opinion. Just because the fiat value written on your gold certificate, which represents the gold that you own, it doesn't mean you actually own or possess the gold. Would love to get your opinions on this. And this is what he was referring to as this concept. So I'd love to address this. And I'll also speak of derivatives, what that means to everyone.
Right. And Bara, thank you for posing the question, and opinions you are going to get. Mine, if you are a fan of Ada, you are not going to like this stream at all. These opinions are all mine. But I've been in this game for a while, and Ada gets touted a lot, which Dr. J will talk about because that was one of his first holdings. I mean, we all do it. I started with XRP until I woke up from that. And Ada is also on that list of, come on, guys. I mean, really. So my whole issue with this, I agree with Bara's reply. If you take Bitcoin and wrap it, the reason that you do that is because you want to move it to a different protocol where that wrapped Bitcoin can communicate within said protocol that is not the Bitcoin network. When you do that, this dollar bill on here, this is an old gold reserve or gold certificate of $20 gold certificate. Yes, this dollar bill right here, this $20 bill is a promise of $20 worth of gold, but that does not mean that it is actual gold, the real thing. It is simply an IOU. And that is exactly what wrapped Bitcoin represents on other networks. It also is what Bitcoin represents on centralized exchanges today, right now. When you keep your Bitcoin on a centralized exchange, or when you have wrapped Bitcoin on another network, you don't have the real deal Bitcoin. You have essentially what this $20 bill is, a promise for Bitcoin when it's time for you to turn it in. The problem is that when things are good, it's easy to turn those certificates in for your actual Bitcoin. When things go bad, we all know it's not yours. You are not getting that. You cannot travel with it. You cannot transact with it, because it is the Bitcoin of the big exchange, or it is the Bitcoin of the network that you are using the wrapped Bitcoin on. So that's the first thing. Is I agree with Bara on this completely. Wrapped Bitcoin is not the same thing as Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
When it comes, yeah, I mean, so when it comes to Cardano in general, though, the problem that I have with it is I just have little interest in ADA. ADA is also Cardano. In ADA's design philosophy, where their development relies on paying people to develop its protocol other than actually creating for innovation. So what ADA does is that it actually pays developers to basically take open source projects from other protocols that are functioning and working. It will pay a bunch of developers to translate that open source code into the Haskell language, which is the language that Cardano uses for its chain. It will pay those it will pay those developers to translate the open source code into Haskell and then release it onto their blockchain, onto the ADA blockchain. So this whole thing is a giant just wait and see. I don't at all believe the rob and duplicate mentality is just a slow and steady approach. Like they always say, we measure twice, we cut once. That's why we're always so far behind. We're doing it for your security. I don't believe that at all. That's just marketing. What you're doing is that you're taking something, translating it, and then activating it on the Cardano blockchain as if it is your own. And I personally have no interest in a protocol that develops that way, instead of attracting developers into its community to be innovative and to make products that people want on their blockchain natively. So that's my first issue. Just thoughts on that before I just continue to go off.
And Dr. J, please give us a little background also in yourself within the Cardano community and what you've experienced. In my case, very briefly, I'll just interject saying, GitHub is the global repository for all of these open source projects, be it software, any technology. Usually they put the open source so the global community can look and validate of what you're writing and what you're deploying. And you look at ADA, you do not see large development in there pretty much at all. So that's one of the signs that rose a red flag for me, and where I decided not to invest in the long term with them. Dr. J, you have the floor, sir.
When I first got into crypto, it was really, what attracted me to ADA. I bought Bitcoin, I bought Ethereum, and then I was looking for something else to invest in. I bought some Cosmos Atom just because of some of the utility there and some of the value opportunity. But then ADA really jumped out at me. And being an academic, I've been in academia since 1994 as a student, and then a grad student, and now for the last 12 years as a assistant and associate professor. So I'm very familiar with this academic, and it felt very comfortable to me. And as someone who crypto was very foreign to, I could see why people, it's a really good rollout that they do to make it sound very educated, very well constructed, superior to other projects, almost like other projects are just thrown together to create money opportunities, whereas ADA is, a higher than thou. We're taking our time. We're not shipping things as fast as other people do, but that's purposeful. And it's a great line, and it immediately attracted me because I like the logical process of that. But when you get into the project and you start to realize, as Tant pointed out very succinctly, you realize it's actually kind of this bastardization of a lot of things that have already been shipped and are out there making their mistakes, and they're learning from those. So that's one of the big things is, even if you do copy somebody else's work very well, you can't copy their mistakes and learn from those mistakes and improve the project. So they're always going to be behind in innovation, despite the fact that they're trying to point to they're ahead in innovation because of how thoughtful they are about the way they approach it. The other thing that I discussed with Tamp kind of in depth yesterday is, knowing academia will take the same question, part it out in small ways, and then everyone feels like they're answering a different question. But that's why we have, tens, if not hundreds of thousands of articles on the same question, and no one still gets to an answer. Well, you got to ask yourself, why is that? An academic is inclined to make a career out of one question. It doesn't mean that a lot of the research that's done, the bench science that's done, basic science that's done, doesn't turn into something valuable, but it takes people that can apply that. So people that work in the application or development research domain, or even more importantly, people who go away from academia because they feel restricted by that approach to things. And those are the people who break away from academia and go into industry because they are creators. They are true innovators. And that's why you see most of the talent in this country, some of the projects, they're not people that work on a tenure track at a university. A lot of people at universities and academic mindset they're very good at articulating things. I think Charles is very good at articulating. That's why he has so many followers. I give him all the credit in the world of his thought process and ability to lay out complex things to people that maybe don't have his mathematical or cryptographic background. But that in part is part of the sales plan. I'm gonna take this down to a level that the everyday individual and some, reasonably intelligent individuals can understand, but I'm going to keep it aloof enough in our development that I always keep a carrot in front of people. So those things are red flags to me. The big thing, they are always going to be behind in their failure to learn rate. They're always going to be slow rolling it because they're academics and they're going to make a lifetime out of this project. And it's very good marketing. When I got into the project, I tried to stake it. It was very wonky to stake it on Daedalus. I couldn't get a clear vision for where things were going because it's more of a trust us. We're academics. We know what we're doing. We've got all the best people. And, to me that started, I'm going to start asking my own questions. So I started looking at the value proposition of it. Where was it being used besides Africa? And that's a point I made to Tamp. One of the things about academic approaches is you got to be verifiable. Well, if I go and say that I'm going to run this, currency out and help people in Africa, that's not, it's hard to verify whether that's actually improving people's lives, adding a strong economic system, to that group. So all of those things cumulatively, plus on the most base level, the running joke is that, Cardano is the best stable coin you'll ever run into because it almost never moves. That began to feel very real. And there were just better projects. And at the time, for all full disclosure, I was in Luna and UST, and that made more sense to me. And the thing at the time was Do Kwon was a shipper, and a lot of people that were working in the Terra group and ecosystem and still are people who make those mistakes, find out, what works and how to improve it. And they moved on to shipping things. And I'm, at the end of the day, production, well done production and make the mistakes and improve the project is how you get to something that can truly change the world.
Those are powerful words, Dr. J. And we live by it here at DCTV and Metafine. All of us as a company is doing is more important than promising. And based on, I remember he began here in the States with a Ethereum development, went to Japan, raised most of the funds came from Japan, and yet making a promise out there in Africa. And like you well said, you just don't see the results. Everyone's talking about it, and then he'll throw something else. Oh, conversations died. Let me throw another subject on. Or what Tamp just shared here of how others are doing, and then they immediately start announcing, oh, us too, guys, us too.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on these things?
We'll get into that, but I totally agree. I don't know what happened in America. It used to be that the American dream was you can come here from anywhere, whether you're from this place or not, you can do whatever you want. And if you fail, in most of the ultimate success stories we have seen, if you fail, go bankrupt, whatever, The fact that you can rise like a phoenix out of the ashes and turn that failure into a thriving, whether it's business or just family setting or corporation, whatever it is, that was the ultimate American dream. I mean, we used to even think about it with Trump until all this other stuff happened. Like just a guy who failed so many times, regardless of what he was born into. And then he rose back up and made a multi-billion-dollar brand of his name and real estate fortune. We see these stories time and time again, and that used to be the American dream. So I love what Jay was talking about with you have to have the confidence to fail. So we're not asking, especially in such a young ecosystem like cryptocurrency, the failures and the experiments are what makes us better, and long-term will be what makes us great. All we can do is look at what we have right now and is this a project that is making so many steps forward that you're willing to risk a step backwards and be okay with that? Is it stagnant altogether? Or is this just an idea that will never actually take off from the white paper that it was written on? And I mean, I've seen so many projects in this space have amazing white papers and make amazing promises that never get completed. And you just need to understand that if you are investing in this space, you need to be able to recognize the utility of the project that you are investing in. If you aren't making an investment on the basis of the capability of the project, but instead the promise of the project, well, odds are you're going to learn a hard lesson there. I think that's also why Dr. J and I, even though we were both in UST and Luna, we believed in the promise of sovereign money. We believed in the promise of this is what I earn and what I want, and I am sovereign in what I am doing, and I want full autonomy within my financial realm. Well, that also applies to when the project fails. The project was shipping. It ended up not working. Well, now you can't just go and run and say, well, what about me? Help me, save me. We're also sovereign in the ability to say, hey, it didn't work. Let's rebuild and let's figure out where we were weak, where we went wrong, and go from there. Cardano cannot do that. It just simply cannot, because they just don't ship enough projects, especially innovative projects, to fail and then build back better without an open source code to copy for the failure.
Those are powerful. Go ahead, Dr. J. And
I was just going to say, when I was listening to Charles speak on this and the idea of wrapped Bitcoin, it being on different networks, I immediately thought about the goldsmith allegory, and that's how we got the terrible banking system that we're dealing with now. The goldsmith didn't want to have to, handle as much gold, so he built a vault, and then other people stored their gold there, and then eventually that turns into IOUs, and those IOUs get bartered out to other people or borrowed out to other people for an interest rate. This feels a lot like going down that road, that a lot of wrapped Bitcoin. So besides the obvious objections of it now moving off into other networks, and you've got potential security risks and issues and language bugs and things like that, you're also truly taking the gold out of the vault. And so if I'm going to take the gold out of the vault, I'm going to go on an IOU system. We already have that. So, I'll just stick with US dollars at that point. So I think he's actually making a counter argument to cryptocurrency, whether he realizes it or not. And I don't think that's what he wants to do, since his livelihood and ability to go to his big ranch all depend on those things. So I think, is he a bright individual? Yes. But I as Temp is alluding to, and I think has probably taught me, we really need to look at all three prongs. There might be a fourth one that you could mention, but the three major prongs for me are, and these are in no particular order. You've got to be someone who's innovating in the way that there's a use case for what you're doing, and it's very particular, and you're very clear on what the usage of that is going to be. You've got to be a developer shipper, someone who gets these things out, and as I said before, starts making the mistakes and learning from them and sharing those mistakes with other people. Like, hey, this is not the way to go. We tried this. This is why it looks good on the surface, but doesn't work. That's how you get better training methods. That's how you get better medicines, things along those lines. So you've got to try them and fail. And then the third one is marketing. When it comes to marketing, that's where they really are superior, and they tell a good story, and they've got a lot of people that buy in. There's people that are very, very passionate about ADA And you know, I was never passionate about it. It just made some sense to me. And then so many red flags went up, and particularly those two that I just mentioned. What problem are they truly solving on their own that's going to bring a great deal of value appreciation to their project, because they, you know, they're really putting that out in the world. And the other was the slow development, but just trust us. And I you can't do that when you're, you know, when you're in this type of space. Trust has to be earned, and it just wasn't being earned at a fast enough rate for me, because he didn't make sales.
Yeah, it's great points. And a big part of that too is that Haskell simply is just not an ideal language for an emerging industry like cryptocurrency. It just takes way too long to build. There's not enough builders. And like Dr. J mentioned, just so much of Cardano's design has been wait for the market to do it and then copy whatever is successful. That puts them 9 to 12 months behind the space, which is an eternity in cryptocurrency. I mean, and you can just see that a lot of the teams on Cardano, they're just taking what's successful mainly on ETH and then deploying it on Cardano. And what's worse is that I don't even think ETH's model is what they should be trying to replicate in the first place. Odds are a multi-chain future is our future, and not a one chain to rule them all mentality like Cardano and ETH and all that kind of stuff. And whether, you know, developers accept it or not, Haskell is not very interoperable. It is just not. So, you know, there's been other protocols that you see this at work all the time on Cardano, because other protocols have released functions that make interoperability and communication amongst platforms very, very easy. And when a major dApp, it's a big trading app called DYDX, announced their move from ETH to a different ecosystem because of the interoperability and the family communication chains on that protocol, all of a sudden, Jaime, you could bring that article up. Cardano was quoted as saying, oh yeah, IOG, or, you know, the parent company of Cardano, plans to create a family of side chains that will bring greater scalability, interoperability, and programmability to Cardano. A number of ecosystem contributors are also working on building their own side chains to add even more capabilities to Cardano. Right. I mean, they announced it right then and there. They just said, oh yeah, DYDX is listing this huge set of reasons of why they're leaving ETH and going to another protocol. And then Cardano jumps in on the backside and is like, oh yeah, we're building that too. We're building all those features too. You literally just screamed it. I mean, you just screamed it. So as soon as that open source comes out on that protocol that DYDX moved to, Cardano is going to translate it into Haskell and post it on Cardano and market it and sell it as we measure twice, we cut once. We're super up on security and everything else, when that's BS. That is not what you're doing. You just need time to rob and duplicate. You know, I don't know what to say. There's nothing innovative there. It's not necessarily wrong. You're doing what you're allowed to do in this space. You can take a text and translate it into another language, but don't then act like that is yours, your innovative thing, and you're doing it in this super special way because it's in this one type of language that's far superior than any other language out there. That simply just does not make sense.
Absolutely. So, like we all know, by the fruits you will know these men, and it's all talk. If you notice, everything has been all speech and very contrived theories, like this one that we spawned this whole conversation of him rapping Bitcoin. And the big question is, okay, let's say we all go nuts and say, let's do this, guys. Let's shut down the mining and wrap everything and move forward. Well, how the fuck are we going to wrap with the miners down? They're the ones that are going to process the transaction and lock it into the other blockchain. So even the logic behind these proposals, it's almost like shooting from the hip. Hey guys, I have an idea. Let's go with this.
And it's perfect. Like, you could see the results of that design mentality highlighted when they actually do release new features onto the Cardano chain. They released a smart contract onto the chain that only processed one transaction per block. And everyone's like, oh, you guys screwed it up. It's like, that didn't happen because an innovative team made a mistake. It happened because a developer on a team was told to recreate this function in this one language to another. And that's exactly what the developer did, because that's what the developer is paid to do, is to translate, not innovate. So when the developer translated the open source code verbatim as they're paid to do, Then it was released only utilizing one transaction per block, which is an ultimate failure, and they had to shut it down. But that's exactly why they're designing for they're not designing for innovation. They're just copying code and selling it as we're really safe.
It's just a patchwork is all it is at the end of the day.
Well,
that is it, you know. And of course they're safe because they just, again, they usually copy only things that work, you know. And when you have developers who don't have a voice because they're only paid to translate and they're not paid to innovate, then you have these type of screw ups, like a one transaction per block, because a developer is not allowed to say, hey, this is my code, my innovation. As I start to put it into Haskell, we're going to have a problem because we only have one transaction per block. They can't say that. It's more like just shut up and translate. Like, okay, I'll do it. And this is what you get. So Cardano is not innovative at all.
What happened to academia? What happened to the development? You're just not seeing the results, those conversations, like arguments, like you see in all these other chains that are being built. And this iteration of failing fast and developing, building, you're not seeing this here.
And that's what Dr. J said, is academia is scared to fail. They are scared to fail. They don't want to have that reputation. I'll let him take it more, but they don't want to fail, because now how am I going to go into my class and teach you when I, quote unquote, can't even do it myself? I'm sorry. I'd rather learn from somebody who had been at the top, or at least on their way to the top, hit rock bottom. I want to know what they did to screw up and what they did, more importantly, to get out of that hole.
Absolutely.
Well, that's something I mentioned to Tam, just the nature of academics. Just think at the core nature of an academic, they're probably somebody who did really well on tests. They got used to getting A's. And so they stayed in academics because it's enjoyable. I love my life. But I went out into industry and came back to academia because of stability. And I like college campuses and I like researching the topics that I like researching. But all of my topics go out to an applied nature. So I still feel like I'm in industry and I'm just solving industrial problems because I've got now the time and the focus to do that. And so I think I help, make soldiers, tactical operators safer. Anyways, all that to say, two things really jumped out at me. There's another company that's really good at copying other people's products and then selling them. And they almost tell you, like, this is not the brand name, but it's a really close representation. Anybody can think what company that is? You might have shopped in one this week, or
Walmart.
Walmart. Just think about every product in a Walmart, clothing, anything that they're going to sell, even furniture. They will go out and copy a design of a couch that's popular, and they will, make it very cheap, entry level, and so for 2 months you get the look of the more expensive, better made product. And then after 2 months, it begins to fall apart. And you realize that what you really had was just a cheap imitation of a much more refined, better product or whatever. So that jumps out at me. And then the other thing is, this feels a little bit like Charles may be trying to direct a little bit of Bitcoin money towards ADA. I mean, do you think he's really open to them wrapping Bitcoin and putting it on Ethereum or putting it on Terra or Cosmos or any other, Polygon or anything like that? No, he would want that to be directed. So I feel like there's something in the background there. This is purposeful. It's not just, I thought I would do another video and just propose this topic out of thin air. So I get a little bit of that feeling. I get a little bit of the Walmart feeling. And then again, back to Tamp's point that we discussed is, academics don't like to fail by nature. They're used to making hundreds. So I don't trust anybody who thinks that failure is not a benefit to getting better. So fail the test and come in that classroom and tell those students, I failed and I'm going to learn from it. You can too. And here's what I'm going to share with you. So you're sharing not just the knowledge, but also the knowledge of how failure can teach you something. So I don't buy it.
That's a beautiful, powerful transparency to the community. The fact that you come to them, your students too, like, guys, I fucked this shit up. Let's come together. Where did I fail? And have even the students come in there where everybody learns from it. So that's amazing, Dr. J. And it brings us to this subject of what's the true value at? Where does it lie? In the actual source, original, like the guys who spent the money, R&D, to develop a product, or the me too on the cheap side? Hey, I already have the ingredients I need. Let me change a couple of things and now launch my own brand. I tend to respect and look for the ones that have the research in there because they've put their own skin in the game. And
Right.
wrapping Bitcoin is the same thing as wrapping gold in derivatives. Would you rather buy the gold itself and have it in your hands, or would you rather buy a derivative of it on the global market? Of course, all those derivatives are IOUs, the same concept that we were speaking of earlier of the $20 bill. This is an IOU. But then in 1971, it's like, all right, guys, we can't continue paying. Let's move now to the petrodollar, leave gold to one side. But look at the reaction of what the banks prefer. They prefer gold itself, not the derivative, not anything else. Why? Because the day everybody in the world comes to claim their derivative, their exchange traded fund on gold or gold itself, guess what? There's more of the IOUs out there on the planet by orders of magnitude more than the real asset availability in the world. Is just not going to happen.
Yep.
So the same thing goes with Bitcoin. Go ahead, Tam.
Yeah, and I like Dr. J's point as well about, kind of a play to get wrap Bitcoin on other platforms. I do think that he's right in that it's kind of, hey, the Mark Cuban, any press is good press, even if it's, bad, it's all good mentality there, because wrapped Bitcoin does have a place in DeFi, right? But we're seeing the spoils of that right now. When things are good in DeFi and using leverage and using an IOU of an asset as if it were a real asset elsewhere, there is a way to make money in that. And for a long time, leading all the way up until really all through last year and up until Q1 of this year, we saw the spoils of all that. But you can also absolutely lose your ass in this too, as we are now seeing. There is a major downside to playing with IOUs instead of real hard assets. So there is a place for it. But if Cardano wants to be so innovative and you want to do something with wrapped Bitcoin, well, again, of course, wrapped Bitcoin is already being used on other platforms. Why don't you build a bridge or a wormhole that allows us to safely move real native Bitcoin to other protocols without any fear of something going bad? If you really want to be innovative, tell me how you're going to make native Bitcoin wrapped and onto other platforms for use, in your Cardano-esque way. You don't do that. Instead, you just give an idea that's already being used, act like it's innovative, and say, well, Bitcoin still has value, even if you shut the miners down, completely negating the fact that Greg brought up about, well, it's also, the miners are not used just to make Bitcoin. They're used to secure the damn network. And he's a former ETH developer. He should know this. But I think he's just spouting to spout. And you got to wonder at some point, what in the world?
Yeah. And I guess one of the ways of putting your, not foot where your mouth is, but your money where your mouth is, okay, I'm buying Bitcoin and wrapping it and exposing my own store of value to this concept. Instead, he wants everybody else, hey, we should do this, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Oh, where do I
Somebody
sign
who does
up?
it successfully, right? We'll get the code and we'll rob and duplicate.
I see
a whole rob and duplicate.
Jaime, I think that might be one of the best points made today. So if Hoskinson wants to go out and buy $1 billion worth of Bitcoin and start wrapping it and show how, I'm telling you, if you put $1 billion into that, you believe in your network so much, and you wrap the Bitcoin and say, hey, this is what we can do with wrap Bitcoin on the Cardano network, and you should do it too. You might turn my head. You might get my attention. Now I'll have to vet it, but you might get my attention, because now, like you said, it's my money I invested in this venture, and I'm doing something that other people, and I'm going to tell you why we're doing it better. I'm going to show you why we're doing it better with my own money, just like Ford did when he built his cars and went out and drove them and they blew up and he had to go back to the drawing board. He's like, don't you worry. It's still my money. And if I go broke, I'm going to go broke building the world's first, or best, not the first, but the world's best car at the time. So you know, and he fought for it. He fought John D. Rockefeller for the rights to walk away with that car because it was that innovative. So if Rockefeller was looking at it and wanting to take the idea, then who's coming after Cardano trying to, you know,
Yeah.
And that's what it is. I mean, if you just wrap Bitcoin and use it on other, on other protocols, well, then you're just into reserve banking, like we talked about. You're now into DeFi. So anybody with a few Bitcoin, like Dr. J said, if Cardano goes out and buys $1 billion worth of Bitcoin, anybody with a little Bitcoin now can basically be a cross-chain validator or a Forex booth at an airport. It would definitely undermine big exchanges, because then why do you need big exchanges to get all this wrap Bitcoin and use it elsewhere? Make regulation more difficult as far as, know your customer or KYC is concerned. So there are some things that could be innovative with this thought experiment, as, Charles called it. This is my thought experiment. You might bring up some good points, but then innovate on them. That's the problem. Like, you bring all this stuff up theoretically, but you have no idea how to actually turn it into something. And those that do actually go out on a limb and, put their balls on the line and try to build something and make something, it's great. But then when it fails, they're a fraud. And I don't buy into that mentality. I would rather invest in the team that put it all on the line and failed and is still going to fight, than to put it all on the team that puts everything on paper and is great theoretically, but has nothing to show for it.
Absolutely. Guys, this is an amazing subject. And beyond all this proposition that occurred in the lack of engagement, meaning, okay, let me show you our philosophy as a community at Decentralized TV, even what Dr. J's doing, what TAMP does, what we all do every day outside of Decentralized TV. We are about, hey, you're saying something, let's go and deliver. Let's do. And that is one of the most important things we want to share with you as a community, as a viewer. And also join us. Join Discord. We put it as one of the preferred links, favorited links, so you can just jump in there and start the conversation. If there's anything you have issues with, guys, we're all talking about it. And just like Bara proposed, hey guys, what do you think about this? Here we are discussing, and we even brought Dr. J right above me or below. I don't know how. By the way, yeah, and brought in to discuss it because he's put his own skin in the game and realized and made decisions based on the fruits he saw. And this is what we're sharing. It's not we're gunning for this guy. No, guys, look at the fruits. Then you know what type of person they are. Are they truly out to betterment of us and all of us as a community, or are they out for themselves? It all shows in the fruits themselves. So shifting, any other points on this before I shift to the next article, which I want to.
We wore it out.
Okay, guys. So here's someone else who is always building, always erroring out, and building on top of what he learns, and then hires the best people out there. Well, there's news that just came out. Let me bring here, and I'd like to get your input on what the heck is going on here, what happened, where we're at, and what does this mean for all of us? The fact that Elon Musk is proposing to buy Twitter now for the original offer he made at $54.20 a share.
And there are reports that they've accepted that offer and will continue along with the sell.
Well,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you got to know this. You have to know that this was coming. I mean, I think when you offer to buy the company all the way up to the fashion that he did, I think Elon Musk very quickly realized, or his lawyers finally were able to tell him, look, dude, as much as we might have overpaid by asking the $54, $54.20 a share, we're stuck with this now. Bots are not, because some lawyer got into Elon's head and said, listen, if this goes to court, we're going to lose. So just go ahead and swallow it and buy the thing, because if it does go to court, most likely a judge would have said, listen, yeah, you probably did overpay, but you didn't do your research, accordingly. And so if you'd have done your due diligence, you'd have seen most of it was bots, and you might not have made that large of an offer, but you did. So let's just go ahead and go through with this, because we're going to lose in court, and let's see what we can do, whether that's take it private whether that's actually start implementing cryptocurrency into Twitter. I mean, who knows what's going to happen, but I just think a lawyer finally got a hold of Elon on this one and said, we're going to lose if we take it to court.
Now, based on his history, what do you guys think is going to be the end result of this transaction? I mean, look at what the market thinks about this. Is that a green dildo or what? What the hell?
Yeah, they're buying into the news. They're going to
Yep.
buy up to $54.20. So if you
Yeah.
have not bought this, don't. Not yet.
Yeah.
Don't buy this yet.
Let it settle and the dust settle, everyone. But look at this. I mean, you see the market reacting to it, and you also see Elon Musk to proceed with the purchase. What do you guys think will be the result? What does this mean for Twitter, in your own opinion? We all use it. What do you think is going to be the outcome based on his character and his iteration of building?
Well, I do think, besides the fact that I do think he's made quite a few statements about the direction that he would want to take Twitter and make it more of an open platform, restore some of the First Amendment-ness to it, that people are free to express their ideas without being filtered or without being, having fact checkers jumping in. So if he better do that, or he's going to have a little bit of an issue, because there's a lot of people that rallied behind him and were very excited that he would do that on both sides of the political arguments and in the center. People that just want to go on Twitter and post something and not see, well, why is this being fact checked? I just mentioned that the rainbow today is very pretty, or the sky is blue. Why is that now controversial? You get what I'm saying? So he's going to have to deliver on some promises, and I expect that he'll probably lay that out pretty clearly.
Yes, a cleansing is coming, is the way I see it.
Mhm.
Because so many of us even witness bots. Bots pretty much dominate.
For sure.
Yeah.
And if Elon does want to integrate crypto, I'm not saying he will or will not, but this is a good opportunity for him to do so. I think a lot of people have come out of the woodworks giving pretty logical ways to implement this once he does own it, especially if Elon takes Twitter private. We'll see which one wins out, if any. Maybe he wants this to be his signature thing, or maybe he wants to turn it over to a team, with some specific goals in mind. But either way, I think if he does want to integrate, whether it's Bitcoin, Doge, or anything in between, this is going to be his avenue to do it.
Absolutely. And what do billionaires or multimillionaires usually do generationally? They buy media. They buy the communication out to the world. And guess who uses Twitter all over the planet? Now, most of us, do you guys use, outside of Twitter, like, where do you rely most for the latest breaking news?
Twitter.
You do? Dr.
Twitter
J,
is my go-to.
Twitter and the ESPN app. That's about where my world revolves right now.
So you see the strategic play he's making. It just like the old, Citizen Kane is part of the whole setup of that whole, you control the media, thus you can influence the outcome of everybody thinking.
Well, he's using the right media too. Like, if Bill Gates bought the New York Times today, that wouldn't move the needle in any way, because people would always say, well, they're already aligned, so there's not going to be a benefit there. Jeff Bezos owns the Washington Post, and that doesn't move a needle for me. If I was different politically in the way I view things, why would that change anything? I'm probably already reading it. I'm probably already in line with those opinions. But in this case, with we talk about crypto being the Wild Wild West. I think Twitter is still the Wild Wild West. I think there's still rules being written, and he's about to have a big say in how those rules are written and what comes after Twitter. There will be something after Twitter that becomes the next big thing. I don't see it enduring for the next 100 years. But he will have some shaping of the direction of whatever that thing becomes. Maybe a rebranding like Facebook did when they went to Meta, so that they could include Instagram and then maybe expand back into the metaverse and then to the crypto world or whatever. But I think there's an acquisition because of what you said, Jaime. It is a leading news source for most people. I think there was a recent poll where people under the age of 30, that is their primary news source. They don't even consume any type of standard media. There's no one like my grandfather opening up the newspaper to see what's going on in the world. they're consuming it immediately, and that is that's got some positives and some negatives.
Absolutely. And that's a really, really compelling reason to watch this action happening. So in the end, you would think he was forced to. No, I think the intention was the entire time to engage into one of the most powerful news outlets on the planet currently in the moment.
Do you think he got the information he was looking for behind the scenes, right? Through all the litigation, and now he's like, okay, well, cool, I got it. Let's stop spending money on lawyers and shit, and let's continue on with the deal.
Yes, it was a validation engine. What he did is the way I see it. Let's duke it out in public. Let the public, because the public even opined on what was happening. Yay or no or what the fuck,
Yeah.
Got the feedback from everyone else. And I don't see anyone saying, Elon, don't do it. Don't do it. No, I think most of us are like, bro, you've cleansed quite a few other industries. Let's get on with this one and get this involved, developed, grown. Who knows what the end game is, but so far the fruits that this man has produced has been constructive for society overall. So I'll get off that
today, guys.
Yeah, it's great. And now before we sign off, there is one guy who has been building in academia, putting fruits out there, and who is now handing the baton to the next generation. And we want to wish him good luck forward. It is this guy, and I'd like to get your opinion on his decision. Ray Dalio, with whom we've spoken of at length at many times, has retired. And look at the reason he wrote is, today is a very special day, and this is yesterday, for me at Bridgewater Associates, because I transitioned my control of Bridgewater to the next generation, and I feel great about the people and the machine now in control. This transition moment is the culmination of a 47-year journey. Thoughts, guys? I'd love to get your thoughts on Ray Dalio, what you've gathered or learned from him, and what your thoughts are on this decision he's made.
I don't know too much about this. I mean, I don't.
Okay. Perfect.
I like the fact that somebody his age at 47 is stepping down versus hanging on to things and becoming a dinosaur and ultimately getting in the way, a la Jerry Jones, a la most of our political leaders right now. Like, once you hit a certain spot and you realize you've taken it as far as you can take it, hand it down to the next generation. Let them adapt it and turn it into what's going to be the next big thing, like Jay mentioned. And let this thing grow. Jeff Bezos did it. Ray Dalio's doing it. For those reasons, I can appreciate it. Don't be a dinosaur and just get in the way.
So at 47, my question is, what's next? I don't see him riding off in the sunset and living on a yacht somewhere on some Caribbean island. So I wonder what's next.
So Ray, just for the record, we have a board seat open for you. Yeah. All right, move on. Greg, great point. To join us. And that's exactly what I love the last words of his bio: professional mistake maker. Dr. J, Coach, we've all been talking about this. By doing is the way you build. And this is the type of people we've been doing. Has been extremely successful with a hedge fund he built, and it doesn't need to work, really. What is the next steps is a very good question, Greg. Left there. What would you do, Dr. J? Would you, what's your ultimate plan? Let's say you hit your projects that you've been building on, where you've put your own funds into. What would you do if you reach this apex?
I would build a company to allow more people to experience some of the nature and lifestyle that people. I don't think they realize how cleansing it is to the soul. That's part of the reason why fly fishing has become such a big thing to me. Is there's a lot of peace in being out in nature and reconnecting with that. And my mind is almost like a lot of you guys we're very, we're spending a lot of time thinking about complex ideas and how these things integrate. So that time away, and I've come to appreciate it. That's why I mentioned Wildfly, their YouTube channel, earlier, because The guy that runs that is not the world's best fly fisherman, but he is very good at telling the story of the enjoyment of nature and fly fishing. And that really captured me. And I reached out to him. He's a young guy. And I reached out to him and said, I think you changed my life. So I would build cabins and homes all over these spots around the country. And I would try to make it more possible for people and educate them on as humans, why they need to reconnect with nature, that a lot of the things that they're dealing with these days are their complete departure from nature and being out in this beautiful world we live in. It's a crazy world. People fight all the time. But when you're out there and you're standing in a stream or you're standing and staring at some mountains, it's like all that stuff gets turned down because you realize that those things are small compared to the things you're experiencing at that moment. So that would be it. I want to make people enjoy nature and be happy.
Damn. What a way to wrap it up.
Yeah.
That is beautiful, my man. I love it.
Bro, a river runs through it is the scene I remember when fly fishing. What a beautiful art out there. What would you do, Coach? Tamp?
You put me on the spot. I know what I would do. I would.
Greg, you're ready.
Yeah. I would get a massive ranch, most likely in Texas, maybe Colorado, and I would build a huge lodge on it. And my friends and family, very much a la Jay, all we would do is hunt and build fires and hang out there, work on stuff in the summer, hunt all through the winter, have fellowship with my friends, closest friends and family. And that's where I would be forever and ever easily. And, if you can integrate media around that to take you on the journey, great. I'll take you with me. I'd love something like that.
Absolutely. Guess who comes on the hot seat at the moment? What would you do, Greg, when you hit it? What will you do, guys?
Family, golf, and fishing.
That's right. For those of you that don't know how Greg loves golf, his children are named after golf. Taylor?
Yep. I have a Taylor May and a Callaway.
Absolutely. I mean, I knew. Oh my God. I'm telling you, this is the
I have an amazing wife, first and foremost, to put up with that, right? But it was actually her idea because she wanted to she asked me if I'd love my children as much as my golf clubs. So I just said make it easy for me and name him or her at the time Taylor Made. And we ended up with a girl in Taylor May. So when Callaway came around, it was no Tiger, Ping, or Titleist. So that's why we ended up with Callaway.
Unless she was Asian, then Ping, I think.
Hey, if I was an Asian one, I'd have to have kids named Ping Pong. 2 of them.
What about you, Jaime?
It's like you guys have said, I don't think I would quit building at all. But one of the things that Kim and I, with our children, love to do is travel. So I think we would be traveling the world and sharing with them. One of the things I've learned as a kid traveling is, and I remember every summer I'd disappear. I told Mom, hey, Mom, I'm going to the south of Chile backpacking. And she's like, all right, son, come back alive. All right. And then I'd call him from Manaus, Brazil in the middle of summer, like, where the hell are you? And how the hell did you get there? It's because I wouldn't call home to ask for money. I went all the way out there. So, but the thing I learned the most traveling is the fact that humankind, like all of us here, all of us want a better future for ourselves and our children and have the opportunity to enjoy the fruits of that work. So that's what we're building. This is what we're doing. Guys, I think that's the time that we have left. Please join us on Discord. Dr. J, thank you so much for you doing a U-turn to join us very quickly on this subject. We really appreciate this. Please grab that rod and fulfill your passion. Tamp and Greg, it's always great seeing you. And all you DC TV members, join us on Discord. Let's evolve. Let's build together. And
like, subscribe, share with your friends. We're here for everyone.
Absolutely.
Thank
Have a great
you.
one, everyone.